There's a saying in football that goes, leave football before football leaves you. And I think that quote fits perfectly when it comes to the fight game. Because time waits for no one, and we've seen how time could be good to you, like with Glover Teixeira and Yoel Romero, but it could also be horrible to you, like we saw with Tony Ferguson. And I honestly think that with the position Israel Adesanya is in right now, it's better that he ends up leaving the fight game before the fight game leaves him. As we all know, Israel Adesanya joined the UFC in 2018, and from his performance in his debut fight against Rob Wilkinson, his success in the UFC was immediately guaranteed. He went on to win 12 fights in the UFC, with 5 of those fights being title defenses against the best middleweights in the world, and it seemed like at the time, he had what it takes to overtake Anderson Silva as the greatest middleweight fighter of all time. But Adesanya's fight against Yoel Romero at UFC 248 in 2020 is kind of where everything started to shift for Israel. While the fight was hyped up to be one of the most exciting fights in the middleweight division, between two of the most dangerous fighters, turned out to be one of the most boring fights in the history of the organization. And it was that fight that started Izzy's streak of not engaging with his opponents and relying on jabs and leg kicks to keep distance for the full 25 minutes. And while it seemed like things changed back to the way it was meant to be with his fight, after getting a second round win by knockout against Paulo Costa at UFC 253, his streak of exciting fights basically ended there. And with that came his new streak of countless title fights with zero action and zero excitement, which started to cause some fans that once loved Izzy for his incredible fight start to lose interest in his title fights due to him not living up to the promises he made before the fight or the expectations fans had set when watching a world-class striker defend his championship. And through his next couple of title defenses against Marvin Vettori, Robert Whittaker, and Jared Cannonier, he seemed to have developed a new problem to have associated him with, and that's his shit trash talk on the mic. One thing that helps build a lot of UFC fighters' careers and marketability is their skill on the mic when it comes to selling or promoting their fight. And while early in Israel Adesanya's career, he didn't need any of those skills on the mic to sell his fight, but with the position he was in at the time, he definitely needed it. And sadly, everything that came out of his mouth just ended up sounding cringe and unfunny, which, adding on to his boring title fights, put him in a position to where he pretty much went from a fighter that was loved by everyone to a fighter that had a lot of fans turn on him due to either his trash skills on the mic or his boring title fights. And while Alex Pereira forced Izzy to fight with more pressure and pace in their first and second UFC fights, it led a lot of fans, myself included, to think that maybe we got the old Israel Adesanya back, the one that will aim for finishes instead of point fighting. But sadly, none of that changed. And in his first title defense against Sean Strickland, he went right back to doing the things that made fans switch up and start disliking him in the first place, with the shit trash talk during fight week, to the boring fight with Sean pushing Izzy back and outstriking him for the full 25 minutes, which brings us to Izzy's current situation. After losing to Dricus du Plessis in August of this year, Izzy's now been on a 2-fight losing streak, one by domination and one by submission. And while he made it seem like he was going to fight Dricus like how he fought Pereira, he didn't end up doing that out of the fear of getting hit. And because of that style Israel's had these past few years, most fighters in the middleweight division are no longer scared to fight him because they already know that Izzy's going to try to point fight instead of knocking them out. And with that, it kind of puts Izzy in a tough situation because he still wants to fight and try to get his belt back. But with the current set of fighters in the middleweight top 5, I don't think that he'll be able to get that belt back and hold on to it as long as he did ever again. And honestly, as someone that got back into the sport because of Israel Adesanya's fight against Whittaker and has been a huge fan since, I genuinely don't want to see him end up like Tony Ferguson or Anderson Silva. He's done a lot both in and for the sport of mixed martial arts, and he's probably achieved everything that he's dreamt of achieving. And there's basically nothing left for him to do in the sport. This sport moves hella fast and he isn't getting any younger. So it's best if he leaves the fight game before the fight game leaves him.